Hi there, Smart Drivers. Rick with Smart Drive Test talking to you tonight about hazard perception. And this topic came out of a discussion that we had some weeks ago on Smart Drivers, or Smart Drive Test here, about a comment by Cameo Seal that drivers were not looking in the right place when they were making turns. And actually, I disagreed with that and said that, in fact, it's not that drivers aren't looking in the right place, it's the fact that drivers are not able to interpret the signs that indicate there is a hazard present and putting in place habits and skills and techniques that will protect them from that hazard. So that came up again this week when I did the crash video, which is essentially a history of crashes and the PowerPoint presentation in relation to that. And what I was talking about was that young people tend to be involved in crashes more so than experienced drivers, and it tends to be an experiential thing. And somebody made the comment that one of the reasons that young people get into a crash is because the idea was put forward some years ago that their brain doesn't fully develop until they're 25 years old. So what I did was, interestingly enough, I put a poll up, and some of you may or may not have replied to that poll and asked people the question if they thought that new drivers were predisposed to being involved in a crash because their brains weren't developed. And it was interesting how many people actually said, no, that wasn't the fact at all. So we're going to talk more about that tonight. And of course, answering all questions regarding licenses. If anybody's getting a license or has passed a license or road test, all of that, that's great. And Ryan is here. Hey, Ryan, how are you? Ryan is from Ontario. And Ryan, have you got your license yet? Are you still working towards that? Just let me know there. Big Money Boss is here from Las Vegas. Can't make it tonight, but I came to say hi. Well, that's really great. Thanks so much for stopping by and saying that. Was the crash video? No, Dave. The what happened? Funny story about that, Dave. What happened with the crash video was last week I got caught out by the time change with the spring forward fall back thing, and realized that it was 6 o'clock when I thought I had an hour to work on it. So it was pre-recorded and then added up. So thanks, Corey, for letting me know that everything's working okay. There we go. All right, so Christian is here. Everybody is here. Dave is here, and Frank is here from Michigan, the thumb of Michigan as it's called, and we had a discussion about regionalism some weeks ago, and Yoopers in Michigan and other people, and trolls, those people who live below the Mackinac Bridge in Michigan. And actually I had a conversation with a friend of mine this week about regionalism, and interesting how that impacts people and how people think. One of the bits of regionalism about British Columbia was 3 years ago when I came to Victoria. I was listening to the CBC, which is the Canadian Broadcasting Corporation, and one person on the CB said, "Oh, I've been out east in Canada. I've been to Winnipeg." And for those of us that live in Winnipeg, or live in Canada rather, Winnipeg is in the center, not out east. Okay, so Dave is from New York. Sadan is here. He's from Russia. Maria, thank you so much. That's very nice. Matt is here. The other username, Mr. Rick. Yes, why do I suspect you're spamming me? There we go. So Dave travels to Toronto often. There we go. Okay, Wild Man. Just drove through downtown Chicago today after starting commercial 18-wheel driving 2 weeks ago. And I've also done Dallas, and 4 times. I'm loving the challenge. Yeah, lots of good challenges there, Wild Man. That's really great. Congratulations on getting through downtown Chicago. What you may or may not know about Chicago is that there are 2,500 low bridges and overpasses in Chicago, so make sure you take your time and go through those, take note of the bridges and overpasses. And just to reiterate, for those of you driving larger vehicles, make sure you know the height of your vehicle. Know that in Canada, the maximum height is 4.15 meters, and in the United States, it's 13 feet 6 inches. If it's not that high, don't try and go under it unless you know the absolute height of your vehicle. Anita, passed her road test last Thursday. That is awesome. Rosa is from Missouri. Hi, Rosa. How are you? And as I said, I'm going to answer any questions you have about license classes tonight. And I was only able to get one video up last week, and I woke up this morning wondering why I only got one video up. And I realized I was finishing up a report. Plus, I entered a competition that Video Creators was having to win one of their slots in their new Video Labs course that's coming up. So I did that as well. So I got that up. And, oh, you're very welcome, Wildman. Not a problem. Anything I can do to help you out there to get going on your CDL career. So I am working on 2 videos. I shot a video yesterday, and I was talking to Gary here in Tireland about tires and talking about changing your tires out this coming spring, because most of us are starting to think about moving our winter tires back to summer tires or back to all-season tires, so we're going to get our winter tires off the vehicle, and also some of the things to consider about buying tires. So that was one thing I was doing. And no, Ryan, the stream seems to be working. Is it not coming through for you, Ryan? Anita? Oh, that's great. Thanks so much, Anita. And Taria is from New Zealand. What time is it, Taria, in New Zealand there? That's really great. Okay, yes, Dave, you're correct about that. Some do make it past 13 feet 6 inches in the United States, and some do certainly some larger vehicles also make it past 4.15. However, these vehicles that are doing that all have oversized permits, and they are on very specific routes. What I'm talking about, Dave, in terms of larger vehicles for 13 feet 6 inches and 4.15 meters is regular legal height that's the maximum legal height that you're allowed. If you're going more than 13 feet 6 inches or 4.15 meters here in Canada, you need an oversized permit for that. So know that if you get pulled into a scale with a commercial vehicle and they measure the height of your vehicle and you are over 4.15 meters or 13 feet 6 inches, you're probably going to get a fine. So know that you're going to need an oversized permit for that. Same thing if you're over width, over length, or you're overweight, you're going to need a permit for that. So keep that in mind. For anybody anywhere in the world, there are specific dimensions that you have to have on your vehicle, otherwise it's oversized and you need a permit for that. And in some extreme cases, or the bigger the vehicle gets, the more of a weight it is and those types of things, you are going to need a pilot car as well. Okay, so know that in terms of pulling oversized vehicles. Taria, it is 2 p.m. Oh, that's awesome. That's not too bad. It's not like Europe where it's kind of the middle of the night and whatnot. Okay, Ryan, try to refresh your... Corey, can you just tell Ryan to refresh his web browser, or try a different web browser and see if that works for him to get the live stream going here. All right, so with further ado, unless anybody has any questions about the road test and those types of things, so Wildman is also from Missouri, and for those of you who are watching on the replay, if you like what you see here, hit that thumbs up button. If you haven't subscribed to the channel already, hit the like button, hit the subscribe button, and subscribe to the channel. If you have any requests for videos and those types of things, be sure to leave me a comment. I try and get to the questions as much as I can and to help people out. Okay, so Wildman said, Ryan, that he was also having some trouble there. He said to exit out and then come back in. So try that and see if you can get it to work as well. Okay, perfect. And what was I going to say? Oh, yes. So I was telling you what videos I was working on. So I've been working on the tire video to give you some information about tires for your vehicle. I've also been working on the trailer video, which RTL, I think it's RTL News, asked me to do. So I'm working on that as well. And the other exciting news in the Smart Drive Test world is I got a new camera this week. I bought a GoPro 5 because I wanted to have another camera view, another camera angle on the trailer. So I've bought that in preparation to start doing the trailering videos as well. And I'm also thinking in the back of my mind, I'd just be interested to get people's feedback on this about motorcycles. I'm also contemplating to start doing some of the motorcycle videos as well, and seeing if people are interested in that with spring coming on and whatnot. Okay, Christian, what is the difference between a motorcycle license and a car license? Christian, there isn't a great deal of difference in terms of overall knowledge that you need for a motorcycle license. However, there are different skills that you need in order to be able to ride a motorcycle safely, because know that on a motorcycle you are 35 times more likely to die in a car crash than you are in a car, because there is nothing to protect you. So know that. So there's also different skills because you're on two wheels and whatnot. So know that for the purposes of a motorcycle. So in terms of most of the riding skills, they're all the same as they are for a car, but you do need a separate license for a motorcycle. Okay, Tommy, you are most welcome. Umar is here. It's going great. Highway driving. Okay. There are a couple of videos, Umar. One is cruise control. That was one I would suggest, Umar, for highway driving. The other one I would suggest would be the passing video. That's another one for you. There we go. Okay, perfect. So Ryan got his live stream working. That's great. Okay, and Dave, were you asking me how much the camera costs? Because I did get it. I think I got a fairly decent deal on it. It's a GoPro 5, so it's not the latest and greatest, but it is good. Okay, most welcome. Yes, there we go. Okay, so, all right, so I think most people are here. It is the first week of spring break here in British Columbia, and the kids get 2 weeks here. My kids are off for 2 weeks. They're with their mom for the first week, and the next week I get them. So, yeah, so I've also seen that happen with the channel as well. So without further ado, we're going to get going here on the presentation. I'll get working on that. I will transition over here. Just get all this up and going here. So just bear with me for a moment. I'll get that going. All right, so tonight we're talking about hazard perception, and the hazard perception video came out of a comment that I had on the crash video that I put up last week, which was an addendum to the live stream last week. Mostly what I did last week was we just had a discussion and we answered questions, and as I said, I got caught out by daylight savings time, which is, you know, an evil thing that most of us do not appreciate. And as one of the, you know, comments on Facebook was that really daylight savings should be Friday afternoon at 3 o'clock or whatnot, not in the middle of the night on a Sunday. So hazard perception, and here is one of the things that I dislike on still images, is they ask you these hazard perception questions, and they show you these images, these still images, which is something that I have trouble with, because driving is a very dynamic activity, and when they show you still images and then you're supposed to pick certain things out of the still image, it's not relevant as far as I'm concerned. It's kind of like, you know, simulators. They're very much a marketing tool for driving schools, and simulators simply don't work, because we live in, or driving is an experiential activity, and it's all of our senses, and you're looking 360 degrees around your vehicle. In a simulator, you know, most simulators are inexpensive, and it's simply two-dimensional. So there is a bit of learning you can do on a simulator, but for the most part, it's not something that's going to help you out. So I have difficulty with this in terms of, you know, teaching drivers the skills that they need in order to be able to drive safely and drive efficiently on the roadway. So, page down. There we go. So for those of you who are new to the live stream or new to Smart Drive Test, Smart Drive Test helps new drivers get a license regardless of class, helps veteran drivers to remain crash-free, and helps CDL drivers to start a career as a truck or bus driver. I am Rick August. I do have a PhD. I started driving truck in the early 1990s, so almost 20 years ago now, which is kind of crazy to think. But drove truck and delivered freight through most of the United States and most of Canada. Most of what I did was in the United States, delivering LTL freight. And for those of you who don't know, LTL stands for less than load, which essentially means that you have 5, 6, 10, 15 drops on a trailer. and I ran mostly east of the Mississippi, so most of the eastern seaboard as it's commonly referred to. So I ran into Boston, Philadelphia, New York, and places like that. Then in early 2000, I moved to Australia, and for a year before I went to university there, I drove buses for Greyhound. While I was at university part-time, I drove for the regional bus line called V-Line, which was part-time activity, and I was a licensed driving instructor in 1997 in a move to try and come off the road as a long-haul truck driver, and did some work as a driver rehabilitation specialist working in London, Ontario. Worked with people with hand controls and people who were returning to driving after a debilitating injury, often unfortunately often as a result of drunk driving or some other awful crash or accident. And in 2006, after going back to school, I earned a doctorate in legal history, which my specialty is in policing as it relates to traffic, oddly enough. And for those of you who don't know, legal history is the study of courts, police, and prisons. And as I said, my expertise is in police. This week's video was on traffic deaths. It was a PowerPoint presentation that looked at the history of traffic deaths and some of the things that you might not have considered about traffic deaths. And interestingly enough, one of the things that I talk about in that video is that at the beginning of the 20th century, the leading causes of death in the world were famine, disease, and war. And then by the beginning of the 21st century, the leading causes of death were suicide, traffic crashes, and terminal illness. And no one is immune to traffic crashes. As we can see here, some of the famous people in the thumbnail who have unfortunately died in traffic crashes. Paul Walker, Princess Diana, James Dean, Tim Horton, and for those of you who may not know, Tim Horton was a hockey player. He was an NHL hockey player as well. He also opened the very famous coffee shop here in Canada that most of us think is next to patriotism. So that was essentially what that PowerPoint presentation was about, and gave you some ideas about when most traffic crashes happen and when you're at the highest risk of being involved in a crash. And this week's presentation really is another in the series of these the thinking about traffic crashes and some of the things that you need to consider so that you can be better prepared and not be involved in a traffic crash. So the first thing that we're going to talk about is what is a hazard, and essentially down at the bottom it says here, any event on the roadway that potentially could cause you to be in a collision that causes harm to person or harm to property. So we begin to put in measures that will manage risk on the roadway. And there are essentially three different aspects of driving that protect us and prevent us from being in crashes. And those are essentially education, engineering, and enforcement. And education and enforcement are more or less one or the same thing. But we somehow manage that risk through those three things. How the road is built, how cars are built, how drivers drive, and the education that we provide to drivers. All of that mitigates risk on the roadway. And so risk is the likelihood of being involved in a crash. And as you can see here in the diagram with the shark attack, hazard is something that could potentially harm you. So we all know that driving a car could potentially harm you. Tripping on the stairs, walking downstairs could potentially harm you. We know that swimming in shark-infested waters could potentially harm you. Risk is the likelihood of hazards causing harm. So it's interesting that we have hazards. Pretty much everything in our life is some sort of hazard, but the risk of it actually happening, or the risk of being involved in a traffic crash, and I'll talk about this a little bit more. Interestingly enough, just as a measure of risk is that in Australia, for example, they have many poisonous snakes. King Browns come to mind as one of the hazards in Australia. Now, many of us have seen the commercials where the Australian is in the outback and they get bit by a snake and they drive their 4x4 to the hospital and they get saved and those sorts of things, right? But the reality is that only 1 in 5 snake bites actually makes contact and causes poison to be injected in your body and you to be in serious harm's way. So even though poisonous snakes are a hazard, the actual risk of it happening is quite low. And it's the same thing with traffic crashes. There is a hazard of being involved in a traffic crash. It is a hazard, something that could cause you harm or property damage or whatnot. But the risk of actually being hurt in a traffic crash is somewhat less, and it's mitigated by all these other things: engineering, education, and enforcement. All right. So preventing traffic crashes. Traffic crashes happen more than you think, even though many of us, most of us who drive and are experienced are not really thinking at the forefront that we're going to be involved in a traffic crash. Most people are more afraid of being eaten by a shark or attacked by a bear, when the reality and the risk perception is somewhat different. The reality of being killed by a shark attack for most of us is 1 in 3.7 million. So unless you're actually swimming in shark infested waters or surfing, there's the chances of you being killed in a shark attack is actually quite high. And there's a couple of other things here you can see on the diagram on the right here. The odds of getting attacked and killed by shark are 1 in 3.7 million. In a lifetime, you are more likely to die from fireworks, which is 1 in 340,000. Lightning, 1 in 79,000 chance of being struck by lightning. Drowning, 1 in 1,200, so it's quite high for you to die in a drowning incident. And then car accidents, 1 in 84, so it is very high that you're going to be killed in a car crash. Now, stroke, 1 in 24, heart disease, 1 in 5. So you can see that terminal illness and car crashes are much more prevalent and much more likely to cause you harm than all of these other things that we actually fear at a much higher level. And one of the other things that I mentioned in the traffic crash video is that most traffic crashes happen in the summer months. And most of us are more, and as I say here in the PowerPoint presentation, more of us are afraid of innocuous hazards, being eaten by sharks or mauled by bears or those types of things. And again, one of the things that I said, that it's also what you're exposed to, right? If you're, most of us are not going to die in skydiving accidents, but if you go skydiving every weekend, you're much more likely to be killed in a skydiving crash. So it's, again, all of this is mitigated by your exposure to this, right? I mean, I don't swim in the ocean very much, and I certainly don't swim in shark infested water, so the likelihood of me being eaten by a shark is not very high. Now, one of the other things about hazards and being involved in a crash and hazard perception, and these are the 6 factors of the driving task. This is what we face when we go out and get in our cars and drive. And these are the 6 factors that are constantly changing and can change dramatically within a very short stretch of time. The driver, the vehicle, the traffic, road, light, and weather. These 6 factors are always changing. And it's interesting because a few weeks ago I was approached by a startup company out of the United States that was going to retrofit cars to be autonomous. And I sort of thought at the time, I thought, this probably isn't going to work. And I sort of went away and I thought about this for a few days, and I realized that one of the reasons it wasn't going to work is because driving is never the same in any stretch of the road. So if you have a traffic crash on a stretch of road at a given time, if you went back and tried to duplicate that traffic crash, and this is essentially what they're trying to teach computers and teach artificial intelligence, if you went back on that road, and one of the things I realized that you can go back on that given piece of road at any given time, and the vehicles and the drivers that are on that roadway are always going to be different. So what happens is that in these 6 factors of driving, they're always changing, which makes driving one of the most complex tasks that we can do on a daily basis because of these 6 factors: the driver, the vehicle, traffic, road, light, and weather. Drivers can be of any ability, they can be of any age, they can be in any sort of state of mind, they can be inebriated, they can be tired, they can be on prescribed medication that causes them to be drowsy. The vehicles on the roadway can be in any mechanical fitness, or have a tire that goes out and those types of things. Traffic is made up of cars, motorcycles, cyclists, pedestrians, buses, trucks, trams, trolleys, and people on scooters. This is all of the things that make up traffic. Roadways can be quiet 2-lane suburban roadways out onto multi-lane urban roadways, and then you get out onto a freeway. In a very short stretch of time, you can encounter all of those different kinds of roadways. Light can change dramatically from early morning to mid-afternoon to the darkness, and all of these have different effects on how the driver drives and reliance on the vehicle and those types of things. In the night driving video, I talk about light, and I talk about the farther you get away from urban areas at night, the more reliance you're going to have on your car's headlights. And cars' headlights are actually sort of a poor substitute for us to be able to drive at night. And then, of course, weather changes all of the time. And just, I got ahead of myself there. Talking about light, you can see this image here of the woman at sunset or sunrise and the motorcycle there. And one of the reasons it's difficult for us to drive at sunset or sunrise is because you have a light sky and a dark landscape, and our eyes are adjusted to the light sky. So know that objects, cyclists, pedestrians, and people on motorcycles and other smaller road users can all be hidden in the dark landscape at dusk and dawn. So know that as well. And then our preconceived notion about risk is that most of us are at a higher risk of being involved in a traffic crash in the wintertime or in inclement weather, when the reality is that most of us are going to be involved in a traffic crash in the summertime in good weather on dry roads and clear conditions, and that's a reality of driving. All right. So the components to master, and I've talked about this in terms of a road test: space management, speed management, observation, and communication. And these are the 4 fundamental components of driving and getting a road test, and you have to be competent in these 4 factors in order to be able to drive and be able to drive well and to be able to interpret hazards on the roadway. And one of the things that anybody who's been on my videos and watched my teachings about learning how to drive is that I say again and again and again: practice, 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 because learning how to drive is experiential. People can tell you all the things until the cows come home, but unless you actually experience it and you actually do it, you're not going to learn how to do it. And again, one of the other things that I say about learning how to drive and becoming a better driver is to have a running monologue, have a running commentary while you're driving, because as adult learners, and most of us who are learning how to drive are adult learners, is that we want to reinforce what we're learning by talking our ways self through it. And I'm talking about young drivers right now, new drivers who are getting a license. You want to develop habits that protect yourself. You want to develop scanning patterns, and you want to develop observation habits that will keep you safe by looking at other traffic on the roadway and whatnot. Now, for new drivers, a lot of this is experiential, but the problem is that in terms of driving and getting experience with driving, you're also getting experience with drinking, you're also getting experience with dating, and you're also getting experience with putting those combinations together in terms of cell phones and being able to drive. So there's a lot of things going on for new drivers. Now, and what I talked about in the introduction, what came out of this is that hazard perception. What is the reason? What is one of the reasons that we think that young people are so susceptible to be involved in traffic crashes? And I put up this poll here, and you can see that the options are inadequate or poor training, distracted driving, and intoxication. Actually, I'm starting at the bottom. Sorry, I'll start at the top. Lack of hazard perception abilities, lack of overall driving experience, they're not in touch with their immortality, that they can actually be injured in a car crash. Brains not fully developed, and this is one of the comments that I got on the crash video is that their brains don't fully develop until they're 25. Distracted driving and intoxication, inadequate and poor training. And you can see clearly that 60% of people believe that young people are susceptible to traffic crashes because of a lack of driving experience. They simply do not have the experience of driving. And I am totally on board with this. And in terms of lack of driving experience, this also ties into lack of hazard perception abilities. And it only is with experience related to driving that you're able to build hazard perception abilities. So that was an interesting poll that I did, and I found out that most people are on board with what I'm talking about. The other thing about driving is that most of the time driving is predictable, and what happens, and one of the reasons that I believe traffic crashes occur is because drivers can execute unpredictable actions. So what you need to do is you need to prepare for the unexpected. And as well, most of these predictable actions are according to a set of road rules, but there are many, many things on the roadway that are unpredictable. For example, people run yellow lights when other people are trying to do left-hand turns, and people think that they should stop for the yellow light or the red light, and they're not going to run that light. However, that is not a predictable action, and people make a mistake because the person did run the red light and they think they have the right of way, and they make the left-hand turn and they get T-boned. Another reason that people get into crashes is because there's a crash on the other side of the freeway, for example, and the traffic in front of you slows down. That is a predictable action, but for young people who don't have experience with that, they're not aware that the traffic in front of them in their lane is going to slow down because there's a crash on the other side of the roadway. So there's many things in place, and we can talk about this in the discussion, that can cause crashes. And one of the things that I found out is that is some of the unpredictable actions that happen on the roadway that lead to traffic crashes. So one of the things you want to learn how to do is you want to learn how to predict traffic patterns. You want to look at traffic patterns. You want to look down the roadway. You want to be looking for controlled intersections and any road signs that will give you information about what's going on your stretch of the roadway and where you're going to be in 30 seconds and what's happening in that section of roadway in 30 seconds. And when you're on multi-lane roads, you want to be looking for vehicle turning lanes and those types of things, because you don't want to get sort of in the way of vehicles that are trying to get into turning lanes or trying to turn and those types of things, because again, we're talking about predictable and unpredictable actions. You also want to know, you want to get some awareness of the characteristics of other vehicles on the roadway. For example, now that we're coming into spring, there's going to be motorcycles on the road, there's going to be more pedestrians, there's going to be cyclists and those types of things. So there's different vehicles on the roadway now. And you can see the picture of the snowmobile here, and in some areas, talking about regionalism in the introduction, in some areas there's going to be snowmobiles on the road and you're going to have to deal with those. In the last few weeks, I've been coming up and down one of the main roads here in Vernon, and elderly people or people with mobility challenges have been on scooters and going up and down the road. So you have to deal with those people as well. So seasons can also play a key role in predicting traffic patterns on the roadway. And basically what you want to do is interpret traffic patterns on the roadway, and by being able to predict traffic patterns, you can interpret the individual actions of other road users. And we can see here this very congested urban street in the city here. And what you want to do is you want to look farther down the road. You want to look at what the traffic lights are doing. You want to look at the sidewalks. You want to have a huge scanning pattern, and you want to know that if you look over here on the right side, you can see that the trucks and buses are in that extreme right lane. And if you're trying to move straight through here, you want to stay in the center lane, because that's going to be the lane that people are not, or other drivers and other vehicles are not turning. If they're in the right lane, they're probably going to be turning or unloading passengers and freight and those types of things. And if you're in the left lane here, people are going to be trying to turn left. Now on this street that has this kind of congestion and those types of things, you can see over here that there's no left turning lane. So it's unlikely that people are going to be turning left here. But people are jostling for positions and those types of things, and you can predict what other people are doing by the movement of the traffic. So you want to pay attention to your own driving, and you want to have patience, and you want to try and see and predict what other people are doing according to the traffic patterns on the roadway. So that's some overview of hazards and perceptions about driving and how to interpret those, what other people are doing, to try and mitigate the risk that's associated with driving, and try and determine or trying to put in place a lexicon or a list of hazard perceptions, because as I said, there are 6 factors on the roadway that are ever changing, and different combinations of those most of the time aren't going to be a hazard for you, but in a different combination, for example, there's a cyclist and you're trying to get past a transit bus, that could potentially be a hazard for you. And anytime you're passing transit buses, know that you should be at high alert, because there's pedestrians who are getting on and off the bus, and it creates a higher risk for you. So for those of you coming up for road tests, it's good luck on your road test. And I'd also be interested to hear what people have to say about hazard perceptions and what their ideas are, they're thinking about the risk involved with driving. So remember, pick the best answer, not necessarily the right answer. So I'll just transition back over here and we will get going here and get the comments back up. There we go. And I'll get over to here and answer any questions that people might have. Yes, fatigue. Dave, yes, I have been hit as a cyclist, so it's not appreciated if you can avoid doing that. Okay, Y3, thank you so much. When Y3, when is your road test there? Wild man, that is, actually that's something they don't recommend, is sucking the poison out. Okay, RH Pandit 88, license first time. That's really great. I'm congratulations on that. That's really awesome. Okay, and Matt said that he used driving simulators and he didn't learn much about driving simulators. Okay, Ryan, the only challenge I have with hand controls is I don't have access to a vehicle with hand controls. I can look around and see if I can find a vehicle with hand controls, but maybe what we can do, Ryan, is that when I come to Ontario in the summertime, I usually come out July, August, beginning of August. You and I can get together and maybe we can do a video on hand controls and I can help you out with that, okay? Wildman says he has a Hero 3 Pro. Yeah, a GoPro Hero 3. My friend, actually, the first one I was using, my first GoPro I was using was a Hero 3, and I borrowed it from my mate upstairs, who is lending me his truck and trailer to do the truck and trailer video. And yeah, I really like the 3. The 5 is actually really nice. The reason I like the 5 is because the camera itself is waterproof. It doesn't have a waterproof case. The camera itself is actually waterproof. And the other thing that I like about the 5 is it actually has a screen on the back so that you can see what you're shooting. And it's also a touch screen so you can move it around, which is kind of nice. So the GoPro 5 has some other benefits, but the GoPro 3 was fine because you just sync it with your phone and then you can see the image on your phone. So, you know, there's some advantages, but not a great deal of advantages. Sadan, you're waiting for the following videos. Okay, give me the list there, Sadan, what you're looking for in terms of the following videos. Okay. Unif. Okay, thank you. You are most welcome. Okay, Dave, I was wondering if a car that hit a cyclist will be your fault. Well, one of the things, Dave, that I would say about cyclists and being a cyclist myself is that you don't want to hit a cyclist because cyclists are one of the vulnerable road user group. Vulnerable road users are those people who are more susceptible to being injured or killed in a car crash. And so those people those road user groups would include pedestrians, people on scooters with mobility devices and those types of things, cyclists and motorcyclists and riders, motorcycle riders. All of those people are vulnerable road users, and if you hit a bicycle in your car, there's a good chance that the person is either going to be seriously injured or killed. So what I suggest is not to do that. The other thing is that, you know, just give them lots of space, and also have a look at different cyclists. And this is a really good point in terms of cyclists and what we're talking about in terms of hazard perception. Have a look at how the cyclist is dressed, because most of the time, if the cyclist is wearing a reflective jacket and they have a helmet on and they're wearing bike gloves, most of the time those cyclists are going to be, in my opinion anyway, I mean, you could certainly disagree with me, and for those of you watching on the replay, I'd like to hear what you have to say as well. If they're dressed like a cyclist, they have a helmet on and they're wearing gloves and they have reflective clothing, they're going to adhere to the road rules more so than if they're just wearing a pair of jeans and they got a t-shirt on and they're not wearing a helmet and they don't have any lights on their bicycle and those types of things. So for young drivers and new drivers who are learning about hazard perception, that about cyclists and how cyclists are dressed is going to be one of the things that is going to help you when navigating the roadway, because you can look at that cyclist really quickly and you can determine that yes, they have a helmet on and yes, they have bike gloves on and they're being safe. Then that person is going to be more likely to adhere to the road rules and there's going to be predictable action. Whereas as if they're wearing jeans and they don't have a helmet on and those types of things, they're going to be less predictable. It's the same thing with motorcycle riders. If they're dressed and they have a jacket on and they're wearing leather pants and they got boots on and they got a nice helmet on and they're wearing reflective gear and they're riding and those types of things, they're going to be more predictable. Whereas people who are not are going to be kind of rebels and those types of things. So have a think about all of that sort of stuff. Oh, that would be really great, Ryan, if we could get together. That would be really awesome. Okay. Yes, Matt. Now, Matt asked me a question about motorcycles and lane splitting. I'm not a big fan of lane splitting because I have a real problem. It doesn't matter what kind of vehicle I am in, whether I'm in a car, I'm on a bicycle, I'm on a motorcycle. I am not an advocate of lane splitting, and they do lane splitting in California. They do it in other places, and maybe people could just leave me a comment here whether they do lane splitting in your area. And essentially, lane splitting is when cars are lined up on a multi-lane highway and motorcycles go up between the cars. For me, especially on bigger motorcycles, there just isn't enough room between those vehicles. I know there's 3 or 4 feet there, but for a lot of people, there just isn't enough room to get your motorcycle, and it really only takes, hitting a mirror or something like that could really cause you to be in a crash. Because for me, and this, I speak to new drivers as well, and people that don't have a lot of experience, and to Wildman who's learning how to drive an 18-wheeler and those types of things, the tighter the space, the slower you should be going. And this is why when you're in parking lots and you're in loading docks with large commercial vehicles, or you're driving an RV unit and you're in a campground or those types of things, and it's a tight area, you should be going slower. The reason you should be going slower is because you have more control of the vehicle. You can manipulate the primary controls of the vehicle. You have better time to look around and determine the hazards and obstructions. If something goes wrong, you have time to react. And finally, if you do hit something while you're in this area, then you're going to have time to stop, and you're going to do less damage than if you're tearing through there. So when you're on a motorcycle and you're between lanes of traffic and you're tearing up through there to get to the front of the line, it only takes that split second for something to happen, and you could be potentially involved in a crash. Okay? Yeah, Corey. Sorry, I forgot to introduce Corey. My total bad here. Corey is Bricks for Wheels. Corey is the moderator here, and Corey's helping us to, keep the spam to a minimum here, because one of the things about getting your channel up and getting well known is that you start to get spam. So one of the things that Corey said here was that the story he heard, and this does have relevance, and I do believe this story is that somebody on a road test drove through a puddle at a significant speed, and obviously we're just going on hypothetical here because we don't know all the details of the story, but the person was assigned demerits, and I can see that the person would be assigned demerits because the higher the road speed you have when going through water, especially if it's deep or you don't know how deep it is, your vehicle could potentially hydroplane and you could lose control. And hydroplaning is a reality. I've driven in lots of water here on the West Coast where you are essentially hydroplaning. And obviously if you don't have good tires on your vehicle and you have minimal tread, and we talked about this yesterday with Gary in terms of tires, and I'll get the video up for you. I should have it up this week. And I learned a new word. The word is siping, S-I-P-I-N-G. And siping is essentially... Siping is the ability of the tire to evacuate snow and dirt and water from underneath the tire so that it keeps contact with the roadway. And so what happened with what Corey was talking about here was the person lost demerits, and if you have bad tires on your vehicle and they don't have good tread, you are at a higher risk of being involved in a hydroplaning incident, and you potentially could lose control of your vehicle. So driving lessons by Big Mac Sam here. This is Sam. Sam is a driving instructor. Sam is in the Bronx and works for Rookie Auto Driving School. So if any of you are in New York or in the Bronx or whatnot, go and look up Sam as well. Look up Sam's driving channel. Sam has started doing videos here, which is really great. Driving lessons by Big Mac Sam there. Okay, so he's just tuning in here. Okay, excellent. There you go, Matt. All the best. Okay. Okay, so Dave McLean says here that they lane split in New York as well. So, Dave, I'm assuming that that's in New York City that they're lane splitting there, okay? Thanks, Sadan. So Sadan was just saying that, I provide a lot of detail, and I try and do that for people to try and give them as much information about driving and whatnot. And, I had a really nice comment. I do apologize. I don't remember who said it, but they did say that, coming to my live streams on Sunday is a little bit like, driver education and going to college, which was a really great compliment because, I do try and give you some of the thinking, the academic thinking behind driving and being involved in crashes and those types of things, and trying to, keep you crash free and those types of things, and weave in defensive driving and whatnot. Because driving is, I've been doing driving now for a long time, and I went to university for it, and it is interesting. And I, obviously you've found out by now, if you've watched some of my live streams, that I can be quite the nerd. So yes, and it's really great. I love helping people pass the road test and learn how to drive, because it's really great watching people get excited about being able to learn how to drive. Okay, there you go. Thanks so much, Wildman. You have a safe trip there down to south of Milwaukee in Illinois. That's really great. Thanks so much for tuning in. Okay, and yes, so we're getting up here. So basically, if you've liked everything you've seen here, if you have more questions, by all means, I'm going to come back. I'm just going to, if I have your permission, I'm just going to have a look here and show you the course that I have for passing your road test first time over at the Smart Drive Test website. And this is a course for new drivers to teach them how to pass a road test. So I'll just quickly go through that for new drivers here. This is a course that I offer over at the as I said, on the Smart Drive Test website. This course sells for normally $38, which is about a little bit less than what you would pay for a road test. These are the 6 lessons that are involved in that are included in the Pass Your Road Test First Time course. There is a glossary of terms included in the course, and the glossary of terms gives you all of the terminology that you're going to encounter when you're learning how to drive and going for your learners. So this course is both for learners and for those who are taking their practical driver education and learning how to drive on road, and this will give you all of the information that you need in a very systematic way to prepare for your road test and pass your road test first time. Because the other thing about this course is it is guaranteed. If you take the course, completely finish the course, and within 6 weeks you don't pass your road test first time, I'll refund your money. So it's 100% guaranteed on this course. So some of the terms that you're going to encounter in terms of the glossary are, painted islands, right-of-way, controlled intersections, and uncontrolled intersections. There are some examiners who are going to use this terminology, and all of this will help you to make sense. In Lesson 1, we go over the primary and secondary controls of the vehicle, so give you a complete familiarization of the vehicle and the controls that you're going to encounter on the vehicle and how to work those and how to manipulate those. All of the lessons you can see here have a review quizzes, and there's 3 review questions, multiple choice, and all of the questions have feedback, so you don't have to go back to the manuals and those types of things, because I really don't advocate you reading the driver's manual in your jurisdiction, because they're very boring things to read. So we try and minimize as much exposure to that as possible. The second lesson goes over the required maneuvers that you need to be competent with in terms of preparing for a road test. 3-point turns, and in some places in the world it's going to be a K turn or a Y turn, and 2-point reverse turn, parallel parking, all of those maneuvers that you're going to need to be able to do and execute for the purposes of a road test. We go over road rules and right-of-way at intersections, 4-way stops, 2-way stops, traffic lights, complex intersections, all of that information. And then in Lesson 4, we give you road test, turning, and merging. So we teach you how to merge lanes, how to merge onto a highway, a freeway, teach you how to turn left, turn right in suburban areas, in school zone areas, and at complex intersections and whatnot. Lesson 5 is a mock road test, tips and tricks, how far to stay back from traffic when you're stopped, how to not block intersections, and teach you all of the automatic fails on a road test. So that's what happens on that. And then finally, Lesson 6 is a summary of road test do's and don'ts, things that you don't want to do on a road test to be unsuccessful. Okay. Also in the course, there's a toolkit, and the toolkit comprises of a schedule for training. There's a guide for mentors, people who are helping you learn how to drive, what some of the things that they can do to improve your learning and accelerate your learning and give you space to be able to learn. There's also a license checklist, things for road test day that you need to bring, things that you should do and prepare, and things that you shouldn't do on road test day, and make sure that you do a pre-trip inspection even if you don't sign up for this great course. Okay, winter driving checklist and trailering checklist, all of that is involved in the toolkit on the course over at the Smart Drive Test website. And then finally, there's practice quizzes that will prepare you for your learners And all of this is over there on the Smart Drive Test, and these are all multiple choice and all give you automatic feedback, so you don't have to go to the driver's manual. And then at the end of the course, there's a final test, which consists of 25 questions. Again, all of it's multiple choice, and it involves basics of learning, vehicle controls, right-of-way, rules of the road, road signs and their meanings, and lots of road sign information, skills and abilities to pass your road test first time, which are speed management, space management, observation, and communication. And this is what is involved in the final exam for the course. And then after that, you receive a certificate with my name on it, saying that you did take this course and passed the course. Now, the course is $38 for the course. The glossary is $90. The toolkit is $110. Practice diving test questions are $30 for a total of $268. Now, the course normally sells for $38, but if you get the coupon for 30% off, I will sell you today the course for $26.60. But all of the stuff and the lessons involved, the 6 lessons plus the toolkit plus the glossary and all of the practice test questions, are the only thing that you're not getting. Are just there's an additional bonus information that you're also getting. You're also going to get the section on how to drive a manual car. For those of you who go on later and want to learn how to drive a manual car, there's also how to pull a trailer. A lot of you are going to go on and pull trailers as well. And then there's winter driving information as well for a bonus of $78. So all of that is involved in the course as well for the discounted price of 30%. So you're going to pick the course up for $26.60. So again, this is all of the information that you're going to get in the course. Pass your road test first time. So course is $38. The glossary is $90. The toolkit is $110. Practice diving test questions are $30. The trailering is going to be another $50. Driving manual, or learning how to drive a manual car is another $40. And the winter driving is going to be another $60, and you're going to pick that up for the discounted price of $26.60. You head over there. Corey will put the link for the course and as well the discount YouTube 30. Type that into the coupon box and you'll pick the course up for $26.60. And I'll just transition back over here and to get the comments up here. There we go, and transition over and come back here. And now for some of you, you might be thinking that, that you could pick this information up on the internet for free. And yes, there are a lot of free sites out there that offer you practice driving test questions. They do offer you some of this information on the internet. However, the quality of the information is never vetted. They usually don't say who has written the questions, and most of the time the people who have written these questions are simply smart people who have written the driving manual and are not actually driving instructors and actually not people who are involved in the driving instruction industry. I've been in the driving instruction industry for 20 years as well. I'm a CDL driver and I have a PhD in traffic safety. So I've written the course myself and is put together. Yes, Dave, you essentially get 7 lessons for $26. So it's $26 for the whole course. As well, you get total access to me. You can ask me any questions, email me any questions, and I will give you all of the answers for that course. So you have complete access to me. Now, this course isn't just for people in North America. It's also for people in Australia, people in Europe. The course is for new drivers and drivers who have started their driving lessons and people who might be at an advanced level. It will give you all of the information to be able to pass your road test first time. So the course was put together. I constructed the course, I wrote it, and I have a great deal of emphasis on practice, and that's what I talked about today, that learning how to drive is experiential, that the only way that you're going to get better at driving is actually by doing it and actually by getting the correct and proper information that will allow you to build your skills and knowledge and abilities in driving. And then that way you'll become a better driver and a safer driver, and you're going to pass your road test first time, and you're going to move on to have a successful career and be crash free over the course of your driving career, which is for most of us is going to be a few decades. So that's essentially the course over there. And if you have any questions at all, send me an email, rick@smartdrivetest.com, and I'll be more than happy to answer any questions that you might have. Y3, you are most welcome. If you have any more questions at all, by all means, leave me a comment. And for those of you watching on the replay, again, hit that thumbs up button if you like the video here. If you haven't subscribed already to the channel, definitely subscribe to the channel. And I decided the other day that when I was talking to Gary Krieger at Tireland here and talking to him about tires, the channel, the Smart Drive Test channel, has officially moved into phase 2. And I've kind of had phase 2 in the back of my mind of the YouTube channel for some time now. And I also do have phase 3 of the channel as well. So phase 1 was kind of doing all of the driver education videos and teaching you how to parallel park and teaching you how to do U-turns and all those types of things, and all of the great videos that we have on here already to teach you how to drive and pass a road test. The next phase is to actually start interviewing people and getting other people's ideas and expertise to help you to buy new tires for your vehicle, for example, to interview dispatchers who dispatch long-haul truck driving, or dispatchers who do regional truck driving, or dispatch regional truck drivers, to interview operations managers, and I'm working on somebody from the fire department as well. So it's interviewing other people and getting expert opinions about driving and driving jobs. So that's phase 2. Phase 3 is to start traveling internationally, and when the channel actually starts making some more money here, then I can start traveling internationally and talking about traffic and driver's license in different parts and different countries of the world. So that's phase 3. So we're into phase 2 now, which is very exciting. I'm really excited about this. And actually it's been a bit of growth on my part as well, because I've kind of pushed myself to go out and actually approach people and get them to be interviewed to be on the channel. So I'm pretty excited about that. Okay. Dave, that is a great suggestion in order to putting up a free sample. And actually what I need to do, Dave, is I'm going to do that. I'm going to, as soon as tonight or tomorrow, I will go over, and what I'm going to do, Dave, is I will put up lesson 1 as a free demo for the course. So I'm going to do that. So Dave, yes, I do drive motorcycle. And I also teach motorcycles. So as I was saying, that's what I'm going to be working on now, is I'm going to start doing some of the motorcycle stuff. And a good mate of mine who actually, I said, lent me the truck and trailer, he has a beautiful motorcycle. He has a BMW motorcycle. And actually, I was thinking today that I should ask him, because he's got all the safety gear and those types of things. And I think video 1 on motorcycles is going to be how to dress for motorcycles when it's cold, because we're spring and a lot of people pulling their motorcycles out of storage and those types of things. So we're going to do a video on that, and then also on safety gear that you need to be wearing while you're riding your motorcycle, and sort of how to protect yourself in terms of, boots and pants and chaps and leather pants and jackets and gloves and those types of things. So we're going to do that as well. So, and if anybody has any suggestions at all about things that they would like to see on the channel, by all means, leave me a comment. Send me an email. I'm always really happy to try and help people out and get moving forward. Yes, Matt, the future looks really awesome. And I'm excited to get the video up from Gary. It was a good interview, and there's some really good information in there. Even information I didn't know. So it's really great. Okay. Yes. So Corey, it is a course that will ensure and guarantee that you pass your road test. One of the things that I always recommend to drivers who are going to take the course, who have taken general information, and even if you're not going to pass your road test first time course, is to book a road test, a mock road test with a driving instructor in your area, and go out with them 7 to 10 days before you take your road test and get them to do an evaluation on your driving. And then that way they'll be able to give you feedback about your preparation, your preparedness for the road test. In other words, they'll say, listen, you need to work on, stopping closer to the stop line when you're coming to intersections, for example. So that is one of the things that I do. I mean, I can give you all of the information, but to actually have an assessment of your driving skills prior to going for a road test is something that I really recommend. And one of the other things to keep in mind is that many of these driving schools are going to be busy, so you're going to need to book your mock road test 3 to 4 weeks out. Okay, so know that as well. Yes, Dave. I know that when people are riding motorcycles, you see them on motorcycles and they're wearing a t-shirt, a pair of shorts, and they got a pair of flip-flops on. Well, I cringe when I see people like that because I just think to myself, oh, that could really hurt if you go down on a slide. Okay. Thank you, Ryan, for showing up. Yes, you do, Dave. You need way more than a helmet to protect yourself on a motorcycle, and we'll talk about all of that. So, yes, Y3 mock road test. Definitely do a mock road test with a driving instructor before you show up for your road test. All right, so we're gonna leave it there for tonight. And for those of you watching on the replay, leave comments down in the comment section. Hit that thumbs up button. If you haven't subscribed to the channel already, please subscribe to the channel and sign up for the Pass Your Road Test first time. It's a great course that'll guarantee you pass your road test first time. Congratulations to everybody who has passed a road test in the last week, and good luck to everybody coming up for a road test in the coming week. And remember, pick the best answer, not necessarily the right answer. Have a great night. Bye now.